Welcome, witches, to this year's mid-year book freakout. I absolutely adore watching other people's mid-year book freakouts, and I'm excited to do one myself this year. So let's go ahead and hop in. There is a list of 13 questions. I'll have them listed in the description box below. I did not come up with these questions. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year, and that is hands down The Change by Kristen Miller. This is actually one that I almost unhauled this. I thought this was more of a fantasy, and I thought this was the start of a series. It is not. And I'm so glad that I read this. It is on the longer side, but it is so worth it. This is a thriller with a magical element with it. This is following three women who are discovering that they have a magical ability. They're all teaming up together to find justice for young women that are on this island. Because one of them can hear the voices, they're going and finding the souls of these young women and trying to get revenge to let them move on. And there's kind of this Epstein type system almost on this island with really rich people and some very dark things happening. And there's not a lot of magic in this, but it does have a subtle build. And towards the end, it crescendos in such a great magical way. I love the women are snarky, they're confident, it's hilarious. You will love the characters just on their own. And I just think that the pacing was so well done. At no point during this do you ever think, oh my gosh, this is going so slow. I absolutely adore this. I cannot talk highly enough of this. And if I could convince you to read any book this year, this would probably be the one. The best sequel I have read so far this year, I read Unwind at Christmas of last year, and I went ahead and went on to read Unholy and the Rest in the Unwind series by Neal Shusterman. Neal Shusterman, I read his Arc of the Sky series, and all of them were 5 stars. All of these are 5 stars, 4 or 5 stars. And I just think he's a new favorite author, because the thing about these books is they have such conversations within them, and they're so subtly close to reality that it's a little unsettling. But you're like, it can't get to that point. And in each one of his books, he just shows you how you get there in reality, like how you get to these points. And you'll think, there's no way, how did we get to a point where this was acceptable? And it's those conversations. In one of the books, I think it was in Unholy, where they talk about this. If you just say stuff enough, you can almost convince anybody that something's normal. You don't start at the extreme. You say something and you change it slightly, and that's the outrageous. But you hear it enough, that becomes normal. And then you push that envelope farther and farther and farther. I don't think I actually mentioned what these books are about. So the Unwind series is a very dystopian world in which parents can decide to essentially retroactively remove their children, unwind them, give them away for pieces between the ages of 13 and 18 if for some reason they decide that they don't want them. There is Lev in this series who's a tithe. Like, his whole purpose, and he knew this growing up, was to be an unwind. He knew that he was like his family's tithe for their family to go become unwind when he turned 13. Then there's Risa, who she was at her state home, essentially foster care. And they've decided that there's not enough room in this foster care. They need space for more. And she's at that age. And they just is like, we think you've met your potential. She did nothing wrong. Nothing. She just became of age. And they decided that she really didn't have much left to give. So, like, you're a great pianist. Somebody who is worth living can use your hands and will let you go on, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And then there's Connor, who was a troubled child. His parents decided to unwind him. I love in the first book, right off the bat, he starts being really sweet to his parents. They don't know that he knows he's getting unwound. And once you sign the unwind orders, it can't be taken back. So they're now racked with like all this guilt. But these three, they get away, they end up together. And this is the evolution of the world and understanding more of the world. I also think that there's really fascinating. There's this concept of, you have a baby, you don't want it, you go put it on somebody's doorstep. And as long as you're not caught, that family's not responsible for that baby. But if you're caught, well, now you're responsible for it. So it's just all really crazy concepts that are so close to reality in ways, so far away, it's mind-boggling. Yeah, I did end up reading all of these, and they're amazing, but this would by far be the best sequel that I read this year. New releases you haven't read yet but want to. I focused on new releases that I had pre-ordered and then I just haven't got to because that seems most logical. The first one is going to be Agnes O'Bear's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett. I was really excited because I read the Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Absolutely adored that. You'll see that here in a little bit. I saw this one was coming out, got on it. I've heard very mixed reviews about it. I think Books Like Whoa loved it. Leandra the Zero TBR was a little let down. So two people that I trust, I'm a little bit nervous now for it, but I think it still should be fun. It's cats, it's magic. I'm still intrigued and I still want to get to it, especially because I purchased it. You Did Nothing Wrong by C.J. Drews is one of my 5-star predictions for this year. This is his first adult novel. I think from my understanding, he has very distinct writing and almost, I think, like not necessarily a lyrical way, but a very storytelling, fairy tale-esque way. And I'm really curious about this. This is a horror. It seems very fascinating. It's following a woman who she has this perfect life with a new husband and she has this child, but now her son Jude is like hearing voices and things are starting to go a little awry in a perfect fairy tale-esque world. Another one of my 5-star prediction books was John Mars's The Family Experiment. I read his What Lies Between Us earlier this year and I was a little disappointed in that. I have decided that I think what I like, the John Mars that I like is kind of that like thriller mystery with a sci-fi element. For instance, The One, absolutely love that book. And I think that this one's going to lean more towards that because there's a family and they're doing like medical experiments on it. So there's going to be, I think, a little bit of that thriller, maybe a little bit of that sci-fi or like medical experimentation that I think I will tend to like better with his. And so this is one that I really want to get to and also hopefully will be a 5-star. Another one, Color Unknown by Gillian McAllister. I read her Wrong Place, Wrong Time, and I really liked her storytelling in the timeline, the way that timeline was told. This is a desperate mother in a possible ransom. Her and her daughter were on this trip. Her daughter gets kidnapped, and now she's got a ransom. The thing that I really liked about Wrong Place, Wrong Time was how the incorporation of motherhood, because she was going back in time, there was this underlying discussion of motherhood and being able to relive different moments, being aware that you can be fully in the moment. So I think that the way that she did that writing into that story, but that story was still action-packed, it was still intriguing, it still felt really mystery thriller-ish, that I'm curious to see kind of, it seems like she has kind of a motherhood aspect to her books, which I really like. So I'm curious to see maybe what some of those underlying backseat conversations get had with this. I'm pretty sure I saw this one because of Spill the Reads, and she always has great book recommendations, but The Secret Lives of Murderers' Wives by Elizabeth Arnett. Let me tell you, the title alone got me on this. Like, sounds so great, but this takes place in the 60s, and these wives are all married or ex-wives of murderers, and I think it's going to be almost like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives or like a mix of a trad wife, TV show reality, The Real Housewives is kind of what I'm getting, but like in a book in the 60s for people who are married to murderers. Say less. Say less. The next question, the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and if anybody knows me, no surprise, The Unknown by Riley Sager. I am so excited for that book. I'm a huge Riley Sager fan, and I'm actually thinking about rereading all his books in anticipation for The Unknown and ranking them least to worst favorite. If that would be something you'd be interested in, let me know. I may just do it anyways because it sounds fun to me. But yes, I really like Riley Sager books. I know that there's people who don't like the way he writes women, and I can understand that, but I'm a big fan of his. Almost one of those automatic author buy books. There's none that I've hated. There's some that I have liked less than others, but there's none that I've hated. The next one is Biggest Disappointment. I don't have this book here. I unhauled it into my little free library, but that is Sign Here by, I believe it was Claudia Lux. I was so disappointed in this. I was hoping for almost like a Good Place, but in a book form. This is following, his name's Peyote Trip. Love the names they give the people in hell. But this is following Peyote Trip who works in hell. And the way they talk about hell, the coffee's always cold, the pin's never right, etc., etc. And he's trying to get to all the souls in this family. He's got one left. Once he gets them all, he can like escape hell. I love the premise of that. And in the beginning, it's so funny, but you follow the characters in hell, which in the beginning I loved. And then you go into the story of the family who he's trying to steal the soul of. The problem I had is the stories read so starkly different that I kept feeling like I was reading two different stories. And it's not that either story was necessarily bad, it just felt very jarring. That tone shift, hell was very funny, the regular one was normal, but if the characters from hell came in, like later in the book, those timelines kind of merged a little bit more. The humor of hell walked away and became more of this story. So it was a lot of the writing style, a lot of the pacing just felt off. It just quickly went off the rails, and I was very disappointed in it. Moving on to the next one, the biggest surprise is Calabasas by R.F. Kuang. This is a book that I would have never picked up. I picked it up because my local in real life book club picked this for a book. And I really liked it. I'm thinking about now reading more R.F. Kuang, Babel or Taipei Stories, the next one I believe that's coming out. Let me fix this camera now that I've like set back a little bit. Let me fix the camera. Is that a little better? Sorry. You were a little high. But yes, I read Calabasas by R.F. Kuang. I really liked it. I have not read Dante's Inferno, which I believe this book is based off of. Alice and Peter are students of magic. Their professor, Professor Grimes, dies and is in hell, and they're going to go down to hell to resurrect him. And they're kind of getting to the different layers of hell, which I think is interesting. And I like that in the book, they have the different interpretations of Peter's map of hell, and then there's Alice's map of hell, and then Elspeth's map of hell. And I really liked the very academic way that she wrote this book and came at this book with the information, the way they talk, the different discussions of like the different branches of magic. I just really was surprised by how much I liked this. And a lot of what I had heard, like people didn't like it because of the academic side, but that is what I really liked about it. And I think that maybe that's what I really like in a magic, because for instance, we'll talk about this. I know I keep saying this. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I really liked the footnotes in that, the very academic style of writing with that. And I need more of that. So if you have more suggestions for kind of books along this line with that very kind of academic type of writing or storytelling, please let me know. But this would definitely be my biggest surprise this year. Favorite author, debut or new to you? She's definitely not a new author because I found out she wrote children's books. If you watch my little free library vlog, which I will have linked, we got some of her children's book. And without further ado, let me just tell you who it is. Delilah Sassoon. I read this, another Spill the Reads suggestion. Again, if you need a great person who suggests really interesting, kind of strange, crazy books, Spill the Reads. I shout her out a lot. She's one of my fave YouTubers. But yes, Bloom by Delilah Dawson. This is short, so punchy. It's so weird in just the right ways. This is following a woman who recently broken up with, and now she is in a small town. She goes to this farmer's market, runs into this beautiful woman named Ash. She would have never previously thought of herself as into women. She's always thought she's into men, but she is enamored by this woman and like fully obsessed. And so they start having this relationship. There's some good hot steamy scenes in it. There is also some gruesome moments, and it does such a good job of like getting to the point, but like not too quick because it is short. So like the pacing's right, I guess is kind of what I'm saying. The writing in this is spot on. I don't know quite how to describe it. There's something to the writing that really did it for me, but it really leans into the story, and you're seeing these red flags of Ash and you're wanting to scream at Ro. Stop, nope, red flag, walk away. And then like do something, you're like, okay, maybe I was overreacting. Like, no, let's be here. Like, and like you're even questioning yourself, and then things get gruesome, and then they pull back. Where this goes in the end, never saw it coming. Couldn't have guessed it. Was it how I wanted it to? No, but I think it was perfect. And like in the end, I was like, no, I'm so glad you ended it that way. I absolutely adore this book, and she had such a way with writing, and I want to definitely read more of hers. Newest fictional crush. I don't really crush on characters necessarily, but I'm going to pick one. Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. Ellis Bird. mostly because during this story, he reminded me a lot of my husband. He's very strong, he's very independent. He will go to the end of the world for you. He seems very tough. Like, people are always like, God, he's so serious. Oh, he's always business. And I'm like, he is, but he's also very caring, very thoughtful. And I just love that about them. I also liked that in this story, they are an older couple. This is a second chance romance. This is a book that I gave 5 stars and absolutely loved, that I had gotten a recommendation from Ryland. She is an amazing booktuber writing her own book, but she has fantastic romance recommendations. Go check her out for recommendations. Spot on romance recommendations. This is a second chance romance. So they had been married, had some kind of difficult things in their past, like very heavy things that they have had to deal with. And they split up about 5 years ago. However, their child's going off to college, so they're going to go on this road trip and they fall back in love. And I love that. And I loved the way that Ellis carried himself. That is why I'm picking him. Newest favorite character, we're going to talk about it now. Emily Wilde of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I just really liked, she was funny. She has her dog. Everybody loves a good dog. Hello, Marnie. She's off over there enjoying herself. I liked her academic approach to stuff, very scientific approach to it, her desire for knowledge about the fairy world, and I just really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed this book. This is a recommendation that I got from Leander the Zero TBRs. What I guess my point is, because I keep dropping other people's names, there's a lot of really great booktubers, and they do a really great job of recommending books, and they deserve credit where credit is due. So yes, this was one of my favorite books. This is probably like my second favorite book this year. Maybe, I don't know, Bloom might be coming up on it. It doesn't matter. I still adore this, and I really like the academic side of this, but Emily Wilde is going around the world trying to kind of discover and write an encyclopedia about fairies that are in this. This is the first in the trilogy, but I just saw that they announced, I didn't just see, I saw this a while ago, that they announced a fourth one. I have already pre-ordered it. That's coming out in January. So I'm going to read the rest of these. I was going to read them earlier, but I think I might hold off and read them closer to the end of the year when the fourth one comes out, and just kind of like do a binge of them all. A book that made you cry. While I didn't cry, definitely got a little teary. This is another romance recommendation from the lovely Rylan. Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. I loved this. I will say I was going to read this like both physically and audio, but I started it on the audio, and let me tell you, the narration of that woman, fantastic. Because this is about Lenny, who is really grappling with the loss of her best friend and grief. She nannies for a little girl, and Miles is the little girl's uncle. But he's recently into the little girl's life. And so he's kind of like, can you kind of help me figure out how to bond and like be around kids? Because I didn't know. And so they're both grappling with loss and grief. The thing about this story, and also like Left of Forever, that I really loved the way that the authors did, is that they made the characters truly be themselves. Like, at no point did I say, you want me to think that about the character, or this is how the character is. The characters were just written as they were, and they felt so real. They felt so authentic. And I just think that the author did such a fantastic job. The struggles with grief and finding happiness and sadness and struggling with all of that felt very real and authentic, and never felt overdone at any point. And the way that the narrator would go from like having a really sad moment, you know, like when you're just like so upset and you're crying and you're like, this feels forever. And then by the end of it, you're laughing, you're refinding joy because you're remembering the good things. And so just that roller coaster of emotion, the writing's done really well for that. And then the way the audiobook narrator narrated that was just out of this world. So yes, this one, like, there's so many moments where you're like, this is heartbreaking, and you get a little teary, and then by the end of it, you're like, I'm happy with these characters, and I just went on this emotional roller coaster with them. And yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster that like you enjoy taking and growing with the characters. A book that made you happy. This is one that I actually got from NetGalley. Well, I got the second one from NetGalley because I really liked the first one. The Fish This is the hardest book to say. The Fish and Chip Shop Detective series. Both the first one and the second one, The Camper Van. I loved Maggie and Ryan's relationship. It was very mothering, but not in a smothering way, because Maggie works at the fish and chip shop. And then Ryan is coming to go live with B, his girlfriend. And she's like, never mind, I'm going to go off, explore the world over here. Like, you're just on your own. And now he's like, I'm in this new place. I have no job, nowhere to live. And Maggie, being this very caring single mother, her daughter Lily is off at school, or not off at school, off doing internships, living life abroad. Maggie's now an empty nester. I just really like their relationship, their growth. They're building trust to each other. There's no romantic relationship between them, but he goes to the bar one night, talks to this girl, finds out there's a lot of connections between him, but she shows up dead the next day, and he was the last person to see her at the bar. And so he's obviously being accused of murder. Maggie is rightfully like, Ryan, I know you didn't do this. We have to figure this out. And they go and solve the murder. And I just really liked their humor. I loved the kind of Cornish slang that they have, the speaking, the writing. I had such a fun time reading it. And I think some of it is I was having a tough time like medically, and so I was doing a lot of like sleeping or just like laying in bed because I couldn't really do anything else. It was bringing me a lot of joy. And while I read other books, it was just like that was like a moment that even when I was reading it, despite feeling like crap, I was kind of like, I'm looking forward to something the next day. Like, I want to go back to read that book. It's kind of distracting me. So I think it's kind of one of those books that like it was kind of the right time. It was fun. It was lighthearted, yet it was entertaining. It is a cozy mystery. I just really also like those characters. And since I read the first and second one like first and back, I almost got to like live in that world and feel like I grew with them. And the second one, the owner of the fish and chip shop ends up dead, and they're trying to solve that. And there's a little bit more to their world that gets expanded. And I really had a fun time with both of those. And so it was just kind of a light and a very dark. So I think that that also like made it a lot more memorable. It's like something where I'm like, I remember that bringing me a lot of joy reading. Yes, so that would be it. The most beautiful book you bought so far this year. This is one that was a 5-star prediction. And while it wasn't a 5-star, it was a 4-star. Absolutely amazing book. This would be Doe by Rebecca Barrow. Let me tell you, look at that cover. This is about a set of cheerleaders. Their life is cheerleading. And a new cheerleader comes in who was a cousin of the cheer coach. They feel like they lose that connection. Shit goes south. Things go weird. There's a magical doe that only certain people can see. There's 2 timelines, a present day and a past. The cheerleaders are in present day, and then there's another set of girls who are the original finders of this deer that they named Doe, and gave this magical, like, so nobody else bound his powers, if you will. It's, I believe, a YA horror. It doesn't read too YA, but the way it's written is very different. It's almost in this, like, poem style. And the thing about this is the writing worked and didn't work for me. I think that's what kept it from being a 5-star, was because it was different, but I also think that that really helped it. This read like a fairy tale. Like you are hearing somebody tell you a folklore story of your town, and you're just like, what? And the writing is almost a poetic, lyrical type of writing. I just think that that all aided in how that story is told, how you read that story, how you feel with that story, how you interact with that story. And I just think it was done so spectacularly. I also, okay, sorry, I had to take a short break. Camera problems / phone problems, because I film on my phone. So I'm not really sure where I was, but yes, Doe, absolutely amazing. Love this. The last question is, what books do you want to read before the end of the year? I know that there's some books that I want to read before the end of the year that I don't own. So I have 2 that I own, and then 3 that are new releases that are coming out. So I did kind of look at this as 2026 books. There's lots of books. Obviously, if you follow my TBR, my run roulettes, anything like that, although given life right now, there's run roulettes are on pause, but I hope to bring those back better than ever. I have some ideas. I'm percolating for when I can get back to it. I do have my TBR tarots that have different TBR prompts to pull. So if you're curious in that, I will have my July TBR up right before this. I'll have that link to go check that out where I do a poll. And by I'm actually going to film that right after this. So if you're seeing this, you've already seen that, where I do a poll picking out some books that I want to read for the month. So the first one's going to be The Silent Appeal by Janice Hallett. I recently read The Appeal. Absolutely loved it. This story is all told through different forms of mixed media, not in a traditional style of storytelling at all, and I loved it. I also have The Christmas Appeal. I want to read in around Christmas time, but I applied for on NetGalley. I pushed the request button, okay? I pushed the request button on NetGalley for The Silent Appeal by Janice Hallett, and I was approved. I feel so like fancy. That is one that I'm really excited for, that I know that I will most likely be buying just because I love that way of storytelling, and that's one that is a high priority. Obviously, another one is The Unknown by Riley Sager. Super excited for that. I already have my pre-order copy of that. I'm just waiting for it. Another one is The Last to Drown by Noelle W. Ihili. I read The Thicket a few years back by her, and let me tell you, this book just feels like amazing in your hands. It's like whatever. And absolutely adore this, and I really want to read more of hers. I've seen like Ask for Andrea, I think it's Run on Red, that really appealed to me, but she has another one coming out called The Last to Drown that I've seen her kind of hyping up on her Instagram, and I'm really excited about that one. Some that I have is one is The Caretaker by Marcus Klewer. I read We Used to Live Here by him and absolutely loved it. Spilda Reeds wasn't a big fan of this, but I've heard other people really like it. And then I cannot remember who it was, but somebody recently was talking about how he has like this website you can find. I need to find it again. And there's a whole universe of his books that adds even more like to the creepy, to the weird, and that just excites me even more. So I really kind of dive into that, then read this. So I think there's like more creepy spookiness, and they're all kind of house related. This one's about somebody taking care of a house. The next one is Sally Hepworth's Mad Mabel Beyond Books. I think this is like one of her favorite, if not the favorite, like her first 25 books of the year. It just sounds amazing. This is about an older woman, like in her age, who you would think is frail, but is definitely not. She is a convicted murderer. I think she has to cover up to like, I don't know. Murder, older lady. She's also got red hair. So I'm losing the redness in my hair as I get older. Thank you for sticking with me through my mid-year book freak out. It feels like a freak out. If you have any book recommendations, as always, I'd love to see them. Drop them in a comment down below. And please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, witches.